So I'm starting to think we've reached peak iPhone, mainly since there's really less and less you can ask for from a pocketable all-in-one device. I've spent the last week and a bit with the iPhone 16 Pro, which I'm actually filming on right now. And sure, while there are some things that are a little bit gimmicky, I do think it's a pretty decent upgrade if you are coming from an older iPhone. And what I'm seeing from the initial reviews is that most people are sort of just comparing this to last year's iPhone, which is kind of odd considering most people aren't really upgrading from last year's iPhone. With that, I think it's sort of useful to just give the iPhone 16 Pro the independent review it deserves. So here's my review of the iPhone 16 Pro from a wannabe minimalist that uses an iPhone for everything. For me at least, I lean into maximizing my use of the iPhone so I can just carry less other things while also making my iPhone less distracting overall through a weak-ass attempt at digital minimalism. And thanks to Andar for sponsoring today's video, but more on them in a bit. For reference as to why this iPhone is a minimalist dream, if you want to call it that, is the fact that there's actually two types of minimalists. Of course, there's the kind that likes to have bare minimum of everything, somebody that probably uses a flip phone, which is me at some times. And then there's the other type of minimalist that uses tech to sort of improve their life while having less other things. In this case, your iPhone is replacing your notebook, your camera, your voice recorder, whatever else that might be. In other words, everything is right here inside your iPhone. Now, as for this phone, the iPhone 16 Pro, what makes it special for me is the fact that it just does so much. Arguably, the iPhone 16 Pro largely just operates the same as any of the older iPhones, which is fine. And honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it just does incredibly well. And yes, there is a decent upgrade here with the iPhone 16 Pro. The way I like to look at it is if you're buying a Honda Civic, you're still gonna drive from A to B with the base model Honda Civic. But if you go up a trim, sure, it's gonna be more expensive and it will have more bells and whistles. It'll still drive you from A to B just like the base model, but it might get you there a little bit quicker if you care for that, or it might just be more comfortable, if that makes sense. The higher trim, to me at least, is the iPhone 16 Pro. With that, at least the Pro model this year has seen some improvements to the ultra-wide camera, the microphone, the display, battery, and while it's sort of up to the user, the new camera button. For me at least, an iPhone is a jack of all trades and a master of some, which is probably why we're spoiled with how far tech has come. For me, my phone is a dad cam, a journal, a notebook, an actual incredible microphone, and a way for me to check if Will Poulter still shows up when I search that actor with the eyebrows on Google every 6 months or so. For real though, when I started this channel back in 2021, I was just filming all of my videos on an iPhone 12 mini, which is why it sort of makes it a minimalist dream for an all-in-one device. The camera is so good, at least right now I'm torn whether or not I even want to bring my Fuji camera with me on my upcoming family vacation or just lean on my iPhone 16 Pro. From a design standpoint at least, while largely unchanged, the iPhone 16 Pro is still beautiful as ever. Don't be me and go caseless on day one. Drop your phone immediately and regret not having a case. Right now, at least, I'm using the Aspen case from Andar. This is the navy blue colorway. The one I'm using on my phone right now is the moss colorway. And honestly, I'm quite convinced they make the best leather cases. Even going back to my iPhone 13 mini, I was using Andar's Aspen. And since then, frankly, it's just been one of the few cases that extends the premium feel of an iPhone in hand. And as somebody who used to make their own wallets, I really do appreciate they use full grain leather, which is the highest grade of leather available. Not only does the Aspen protect your device, but it feels incredible in hand. The case smells good if you're into that. It keeps your lenses from scratching with a camera lip, and it still gives you full access to the new camera button, which I'll definitely be touching on shortly. That, and typically as cases get used, they end up just looking worse with time. With the Aspen at least, leather simply ends up looking better with time, and they end up getting a beautiful patina with age, making every single Aspen unique to the holder. Be sure to check my link down below in the video description for a discount, and thanks again to Andar for sponsoring today's video. Trust me, you're gonna love a leather case. Now, as for what's new with the 16 Pro specifically, I'll just name them all here on screen and let you know how I feel about them, and I'll put a little plus or minus sign to let you know if I dig that feature or not. Starting with the microphone, this is an absolute double plus for me because it just was one of those under the radar features I wasn't quite expecting to be as good as it is. Patrick Tomaso did a pretty sweet video about the microphone. I'll leave that link down below if you do want to check that out. But again, as somebody who doesn't particularly do professional production and just wants the least amount of gear as possible when I am shooting with my iPhone, this is a fat upgrade. Obviously, it's not going to match up to a real studio mic or whatever else, but man, does the microphone sound incredible on here. Even this video I'm filming right now is on the iPhone, like I mentioned, and I'm just using the built-in internal mic using their studio setting, if I'm not mistaken. Whenever I'm recording guitar riffs on here, it just does a great job. And I can accept the quality enough that I no longer really care to rig up an external mic for certain shots. And let me be clear too, the microphone being as good as it is isn't just meant for content creators because I'm a huge advocate of using the iPhone as a dad cam, so there's massive value in that if you're just making home videos. The ultra-wide camera, that is a huge plus for me, huge. fat, thick, massive, whatever else. I just wasn't expecting the ultra-wide camera to be this good as well. I know they mentioned it, but having realized I really previously just never used the ultra-wide camera simply because I didn't really like the quality of it and I didn't particularly find it usable when shooting Apolog, so I didn't really ever touch it. This is coming from a videographer standpoint. Again, I'm no professional by any means, but at this point, the ultra-wide being now 48 megapixels, it seems to perform a lot better than it was previously, and I think that's good enough for certain things like establishing shots and just overall usage. For myself, I did spend a good time with my family at a farm this past weekend, and the shots that I was able to get on here in ultra-wide really stand up, and I do appreciate the upgrade here on the ultra-wide camera. Again, this is coming from a hobbyist videographer standpoint. I'm trash at photography, so I have no clue how it performs photography-wise. Maybe I'll get there one day. Now, the display. That's a plus, mainly because it's just a nice display. It gets bright as hell, especially outside, and I appreciate how this goes down to 1 nit in the evenings, especially while I'm perusing my scumbag activities. But I'll be real though, I'm one of those people who really doesn't particularly care between high refresh or 60 hertz versus 120 hertz on my iPhone. And sure, yeah, I'm a gamer who absolutely digs 120 hertz and high refresh displays, but for my use case on my iPhone, I'm not particularly gaming. And yeah, of course you want a higher refresh rate where available, but to me, it's not that big of a deal. Whenever I would swap between my iPhone 13 mini and my Pro iPhone, sure, it's noticeable right off the bat, but then it's not noticeable, if that makes sense. Still, it's a great OLED display and it looks awesome. But Apple Intelligence, I think I'm gonna put a plus minus for this one, mainly because it's not even out yet for the public, which is a bit weird. But even through the beta program right now where I'm testing Apple Intelligence with whatever available features there are, I just find it sort of whatever. The calculator app is pretty badass, but for myself, I don't find myself using the rewriting tools. I don't know if it's because I'm ignorant and find myself to be a strong writer or whatever else, but I'm not really using the Apple Intelligence features like I thought I would. I was sort of previously excited about it, but at this point, having tested it some more, it's not that game-changing for me at least. I know lots of people are pumped for that new emoji playground thing that you get to play with, but again, that's not really something that I find I'm gonna be using in my use case, so yeah, so far it's whatever. I will say the upgrades to Siri are definitely a huge welcome. She's back into sort of a usable space now where I found Siri before was just absolute garbage, so yeah, that's a huge plus, I guess, but still Apple Intelligence overall is a plus minus. Now getting to the actual device size itself, that's probably gonna be my first negative, mainly because I just really miss devices under 6 inches. And I think that's the reason why I constantly go back to my iPhone 13 mini. Despite all the massive, powerful upgrades in all the Pro devices, I'm frequently swapping back to my 13 mini because of the screen size. And yeah, sure, the screen is absolutely beautiful like I mentioned, but again, it did get a little bit bigger this year, and I'm not sure I like the trend of phones getting even larger than they already are, but is that just me? What do you guys think about that? I think I just dig smaller phones. And lastly, I'm gonna have to give it a minus, and that's gonna be the camera button. I sort of just find it gimmicky. For me at least right now, the capture button sort of feels like a solution to a problem that didn't really exist. It definitely has its uses as a dedicated shutter button, but both the action button and the volume rockers sort of already did that. And yeah, there's all those other controls you have, like swapping around your f-stop, lenses, and zooms and all that. But in reality, you could do all of that on screen already, and I found that to be more intuitive and faster. Again, this could just be me not being used to the newness of the capture button, and maybe there's some tweaks that could be done. I heard there are some accessibility features that you can change the pressure sensitivity. But again, why do I have to do that if it's all on screen? Maybe it gets better, we'll see. For now, it's a minus. But yeah, when it comes down to the iPhone 16 Pro, despite some questionable things like no Apple Intelligence on public release and the capture button, which is whatever here or there, I find that iPhone 16 Pro is an absolute incredible device all around, and it really is impressive. From a minimalist standpoint, honestly, at this point, I think it can replace your camera depending on what sort of work you do, whether it's hobbyist, professional, whatever else. It replaces your media player, your voice recorder, your notepad, your notebook, your journal, whatever else. The iPhone sort of just does it all at this point. And as much as creators naturally review the iPhone from a creator perspective, I find the camera upgrades on here absolutely immense as a dad cam. I can't stress it enough, you really, truly don't have to be a creator to benefit from these features. The fact is, it's reached a point where it's not just good at what it does, but actually outstanding. And it's not like this new shiny iPhone is so much better than the 13, 14, or 15, but for anybody who gets the new shiny thing, often that's enough to get us fired up to do any sort of creative stuff, or just to go out and take some nice photos. With all of that, should you buy the iPhone 16 Pro? Honestly, it's a pretty sick device, and I would personally say yes, Now, if you're coming from the iPhone 15 Pro, obviously this isn't the device for you, and you probably already know that. If you have a 15 Pro and you're peeping the iPhone 16 Pro, you probably already know about all the differences, what your use case is, and whether or not you're gonna buy it. If you've got an older device, say the 12, 13, maybe even the 14, this really is a solid upgrade. The thing is as well, you don't need some massive groundbreaking feature to upgrade to the 16 Pro. It could just be one singular super valuable feature that might make this enough for an upgrade. That could be the ultra wide camera, it could be the mic, hell, it could even be Apple Intelligence that comes at a later date. If that's for you, the 16 Pro is a decent buy. That said though, you don't need a stranger like myself to tell you whether or not you should or shouldn't buy the new iPhone, mainly because that's truly gonna be up to you. If you want the new shiny thing, buy the new shiny thing. That's nobody else's business. For me at least, my annual battle will remain. Do I wanna go back to my iPhone 13 mini or not? I might test that out. I'm not sure. The 16 Pro's in a good spot now, and maybe I will just get used to the size. Either way, as a wannabe minimalist, the iPhone 16 Pro does so many things, and it's hard not to appreciate.